Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Self-Love Summit. I'm Mia Saenz, your host, and with me for this segment is Gregory Anne Cox. Welcome, Gregory Anne.
Thank you so much, Mia. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here because part of self-love is knowing how to take care of our temple. We're divine beings, but if we neglect our temple, our body, then we have nothing for that spiritual zone to live in. And so living in this body is so very important.
It really is. And I'm so glad to be a part of a conversation that includes that idea.
Thank you. Would you share with the listeners and viewers your story of how you got to where you are now and what inspired you to teach?
Gosh, I think I was inspired to teach when I was little because I spent a lot of time in my room creating plays and singing and dancing and things like that. And then school took over and I really wanted to be a doctor. And I had a science teacher in high school who said, you shouldn't go into medicine because you're not good at science. You should stick to language. So, of course, I dutifully, it was actually a gift. Many years later, I realized that. But at the time, I thought, okay, I am good with language, but I'll study psychology because I really wanted to help people. And somehow I found myself in kitchens. I became a professional chef. I went to the Culinary Institute of America, and I did that for 27 years until the calling to help people. I know that food is medicine, so that was a big part. I studied nutrition, and I worked for a heart surgeon. We developed a restaurant around the idea of healthy food. But I wanted to do something other than food to help people. And I couldn't seem to find a school that I could get a psych degree in, so I found life coaching, and that was just this delicious fit. Mm-hmm. And I realized many years later the Western medical model, had I gone to medical school, would really not have served me, or I would not have served it very well. Right. So now I'm doing what I love. I'm coaching women, and I'm coaching coaches, and I'm teaching and getting the word out about what I believe to be the ultimate mind-body care package. Let's call it that.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I'm really fascinated that you help create with a surgeon, a heart surgeon, food for our body, for our temple, to keep us nutritionally and balanced. And tell us a little bit about that experience, because food is what we eat to feed and fuel our body. And so it's very important to have the proper nutrition and the proper ideas that go in as we eat that beautiful food that we prepare. We don't want to just gobble it down, of course. We want to enjoy it. We want to enjoy it with our senses. And so will you share what that was like to create this type of food, and just briefly what some of the ideas are and concepts, so people who are now putting the idea, oh, I need to take care of my body too, will understand.
Yes. I have to say that this man, his name was Dr. Pat Daly. He was one of the first heart transplant surgeons. He was way ahead of his time because this was in the late 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And he said that 65% of the people he operated on did not have to be on the table. It needed lifestyle choice. Now, of course, the prescription for health in those days was very low fat, very heavy grain based. Now we know that fat is important in a greater quantity than 10%, which is what we were doing. But he gave the inner circle, the corporate team, the ultimate gift, and he let each of us, if we wanted to, stand in while he did heart surgery on somebody. And so I stood at the head of this blessed granny woman, and I watched them take her heart out, and he showed us all I was like called at that moment. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was a miracle. The surgery is miraculous for people that need the surgery. But what I saw, what he was saying is, if we can change the way we think about food and how we take care of our bodies, we can avoid all of this trauma. And it is traumatic. You know, a saw goes through your bones. It's really bad. Right. So I took from that, and I kept going on my journey. The food that we created was a quick food restaurant. It was all made fresh. We didn't use anything that was not, as little chemical, if there was such a thing in those days, as possible, organic when we could buy it. And it set me on a course of understanding a deeper level of the idea that the food, where the food is coming from, how the animal is treated became really important to me because, of course, if we're taking in the stress hormones of another stressed out animal, if we eat animal foods, we're taking in all of that, the weight of that the psychic weight, I guess I would call it. Mm-hmm. So as my career developed, I realized that I wanted to cook only high-end because most people that do this kind of stuff, it starts at the top of the food chain and it eventually comes down to the rest of us. But I was blessed enough to be able to work in some really high-end homes where it was like, just go to the market and buy what's fresh, buy what's organic. I went to California to work for a few years because that was where it was all starting, this movement to respect the food as well as respecting our bodies by what we're putting in. And now I don't cook as a chef anymore except for myself and friends and family, but I have such a respect for every aspect of what goes in. And I say that everything is food. It's what goes in up here as well as what goes into our physical bodies.
I love that. That's really, really beautiful and incredibly powerful. I'm in total wow, because that moment when you were standing at the head of this woman and her heart was out on her chest, that was life-altering for you to see that. That was a major experiential shift for you.
Absolutely.
That said,
changed everything.
My life has to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. And that's really when we do change our life, when we have that major shift. If I could just share briefly.
Yes, please.
5 years I had my awakening wake-up call. I was, and people who know me know about this, but I was 350 pounds, or close, 325, and I was in a wheelchair due to an accident. And I was dying. The doctors gave me 2 years. It still is emotional.
Oh my gosh, and I'm feeling it.
My organs were closing down, and I was on 11 medications and a CPAP. The reason I gained the weight was because men would not leave me alone when I was a little girl and a young woman. And when I got married, my husband didn't protect me, and we're no longer together. But the point is that, and I ate on purpose to keep men away. So I had this wake-up call on my birthday 5 years ago, and it's the 5 years is coming up next month, actually, when this summit airs. So it's my birthday present.
Yay.
And I thought, wow, what would it be like to connect my heart and mind enough to change my life? And I lost 140 pounds immediately in 7 months, no surgery. By changing my diet, I was off all medications but one, my thyroid, which I couldn't change. No CPAP, no nothing. Working out twice a day. That just meant a 45-minute walk in the morning, one at night, or one in the morning, and a gym or a swim, just as long as I kept my metabolism going. And it just fell off. And then I continued on down the path. But it's amazing when we take that step. So I'm really love this aspect of this show, because I, on a cellular level, changed my body structure, changed my life, and I'm here today. I didn't think I would make it. I said to my son, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to lose the weight as soon as I can, and it may kill me. And he was 13 at the time, and he said, I want you to do whatever you can do, Mom, to make you happy. And I said, I feel it's the only gift that I have to you, is to show you that we can do whatever we need to do for ourselves. Whatever we want to do in life, we can do. So thank you for reminding me of how life-altering that is, because we really do need to take care of our temple. It's incredibly important. And I've been so busy the last couple of years that I forget that. So I'm blessed that you're here at the very beginning of the summit to share this as we go through all the other steps of self-love, because taking care of ourselves is self-love.
Oh, it absolutely is. There's no question.
Yes. And you were also talking about our mind. We put food into our mind, our mental thoughts, just as we do fuel our body.
Yeah.
There's also, if you'd like to talk about it, because we were talking about it in our pre-interview, about Dr. Emoto and the water in which you're going to talk about one version and then maybe, or both versions, or I'll talk about one and you talk about the other. But you go ahead first.
Okay, for those people who need a little refresher course, Emoto was the man who had taken water and cursed at it in one glass and froze it, and then spoke lovingly to the other glass, and many, many times repeated. And the crystals that formed in the loving glass were beautiful works of art, and the ones in the not-so-loving glass were very chaotic and broken and almost angry looking. And it occurred to me when I was reading that and seeing those pictures that if the body is 75% water, then what does our self-talk do to the water inside? And in fact, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's one of my favorite scientists out there, who was really the father of the science of epigenetics, which says that we are not victims to our genetics, but we're able to turn on and off our genes. He says that the body is like a giant petri dish covered in skin, and the medium is our blood. And the blood affects the cells, and how we affect the blood and the environment around our cells is by our thoughts and our feelings, as well as our lifestyle choices. And he really opened my mind to the idea that it is so important that we bring daily momentary awareness, because there are days when we're just off, right? We're mad or we're feeling like we didn't do enough. We have to stop and go back, because when we are angry or emotionally stressed out by somebody, we're allowing something else or somebody else to do that. The cells start to clump up together. And when they're in that fight or flight state, just like we would be, they cannot perform the daily functions that we need. Respiration slows down, immunity slows down. They just can't do what they're meant to do. When they're in a relaxed state, when we're happy and peaceful inside and outside, they just relax. And all of the hormones that rebuild and nurture are able to flow in and out of the cells. Isn't that fascinating?
It's beautiful. It's truly beautiful. Yeah. And we can heal ourselves when we are in meditation and loving our body, because that's really what we do. Here's just something that happened the other day. As you were talking, I'm like, absolutely. My mouth in the back had been, which is crazy, I've got the best like horse teeth in the world, and I'm almost a half a century old, and so it's like, wow, I love this. My gums started bleeding for about 2 weeks, and 3 nights ago, I mean, it was just when I was brushing my teeth, it was coming out like very fast.
Wow.
And so I just started doing meditation healing work around it, just knowing that it was closed and I was perfect, there was no infection, and just working like that. And I have not had any blood since on my gums. And it's also aligning ourselves with the divine, however we want to call it, whether it's God, whether it's Allah, whether it's, whatever name you want to call it, it's all the same being. So aligning ourselves to that.
Yeah, there's a great book that I'm reading right now by a doctor named Lisa Rankin, and it's called, I think it's called You Can Heal Yourself. And she burnt out in her medical practice after 20 years of being a doctor. She kept not being satisfied and not seeing patients get well, and she went away. And as she was away, she started to have this epiphany that the spontaneous remissions that we've all heard about and the things that would be weird in the hospital, like, oh, so-and-so just left, but I thought he had stage 4 cancer. No, he seems to be better. She couldn't let that idea go. So she did this massive amount of research about how the mind is able to heal. Because the body, it is a self-healing organism. It wants homeostasis. And when we take away the negative thought, or we focus on a disease or a gum that's irritated and bleeding, if that's where our attention goes, then it gets worse. If we attend to thinking about the healing possibility, we are able to heal. It's a phenomenal book.
It is. And also, Louise Hayes also has Heal Yourself.
Yes.
So, yeah, there are some, and what's really funny is I'm not a religion, I'm a spiritual person, but I was raised in a religion where we were taught to heal. And so that's fundamentally my core beliefs anyways, because from a little tiny girl I was raised very metaphysical to know that I was the perfect reflection of the divine, and how can I be out of alignment. So yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, this is not about me, this is about what you're sharing, but I can go on and on and on about the things that I was able to do as a child and in my family, and the beautiful things I've seen others, not even in specifically people that I knew, but things that I've read. So it's truly beautiful, the body.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we were talking about women who age, and men, because there's going to be men watching our show too. As we age, if we keep our mental state up and know that we're beautiful, and why we're beautiful, because how can we not be? We're the reflection of the divine. We're absolutely beautiful and in alignment. I'd like you to talk about this too, because what else can we be but just if our inner light shows, and it's, I tell people I'm not pretty because of my hair or my smile or my eyes. It's because I'm aligned to the divine, just like you are, and you are, and you are. We all are, and we're all gorgeous because of who we are, who we truly are, innately are, not just our temple, because everyone is exactly the same. We have the exact birthright of wholeness, completeness, divinity, all of that together.
We do, and the cultural messages for most people are so loud that as we age, the wrinkles should go away, the teeth should be perfect anyway, we're saggy, we should have something done. And it is, for you, what a blessing to grow up in a home where you were taught that you were a reflection of the divine. Many women that I have coached, and just friends and I talking, and I'm guilty of it myself. You know, when I watch the replay of this, I will notice every single thing that's under here that didn't used to be there, and, you know, again, I know what the physiology behind those negative thoughts is, and if I truly want to live and stay vibrant and enjoy as long a time as I have on this earth, I have to nip that stuff in the bud.
Exactly.
I have to return to a place where, like you mentioned, I'm a reflection of the divine, or I'm still vibrant. I have things to offer the world. There's so much I want to do. Am I going to sit around and focus on my wrinkles? That's just silly to me. But it comes up, and I just kind of, okay, Greg, just step away.
But also, Greg, when you look in the mirror, embrace those wrinkles.
Yes, I know.
Embrace the beauty.
Embrace our wrinkles.
I actually have a 6-week program where I have my clients do mirror work every single day. And they literally come from anger and hatred to saying, I'm really beautiful. And they can be heavy, and they can be old, and they can be young, and they're just like, I didn't know that I looked like this. Because they actually get to know exactly who they are by doing their mirror work. And it's beautiful. It truly is, because at any age we still have that glow that comes out. If we allow it.
If we allow it, exactly.
And that's where the beauty comes from. Yeah.
Yeah. We do, and the cultural messages for most people are so loud that as we age, the wrinkles should go away, the teeth should be perfect anyway, we're saggy, we should have something done. And it is, for you, what a blessing to grow up in a home where you were taught that you were a reflection of the divine. Many women that I have coached, and just friends and I talking, and I'm guilty of it myself. You know, when I watch the replay of this, I will notice every single thing that's under here that didn't used to be there, and, you know, again, I know what the physiology behind those negative thoughts is, and if I truly want to live and stay vibrant and enjoy as long a time as I have on this earth, I have to nip that stuff in the bud.
Exactly.
I have to return to a place where, like you mentioned, I'm a reflection of the divine, or I'm still vibrant. I have things to offer the world. There's so much I want to do. Am I going to sit around and focus on my wrinkles? That's just silly to me. But it comes up, and I just kind of, okay, Greg, just step away.
But also, Greg, when you look in the mirror, embrace those wrinkles.
Yes, I know.
Embrace the beauty.
Embrace our wrinkles.
I actually have a 6-week program where I have my clients do mirror work every single day. And they literally come from anger and hatred to saying, I'm really beautiful. And they can be heavy, and they can be old, and they can be young, and they're just like, I didn't know that I looked like this. Because they actually get to know exactly who they are by doing their mirror work. And it's beautiful. It truly is, because at any age we still have that glow that comes out. If we allow it.
If we allow it, exactly.
And that's where the beauty comes from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious. We're going to edit this part out right here. I didn't write down all the stuff as you were talking because I was grabbing the paper. So where would you like to go from here?
How about if we talk a little bit about, if we go back to Bruce Lipton and the idea of epigenetics, it's like, what do you mean? You said that genes aren't destiny, but, you know, everybody believes that they can get a disease. Whether we're a reflection of the divine, aren't we going to get it if it's in our family? Something along those lines, because I think it's really important, especially for women at midlife, and not that that's your only audience, but a lot of women are watching this.
Right. And then also, towards the end, did you want to talk about your free gift?
You know, I haven't figured out what to give your people.
Oh, that's okay.
Let's just say I will create something. I have a free gift. You can find it at wealthywellness.com/Mia.
It'll all be in the credits. I won't remember that part, but I'll.
Oh, okay. But I mean, I can say that, and then if you want to tell people, like, oh, and then you'll roll it, or you'll put it in the whatever copy they get emails. Mm-hmm. But
exactly.
Yeah, I'll talk about something that I'm going to give them.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Let me see this one. Okay, perfect. And we're back on. You were talking about Bruce Lipton and how we can, dang it, that didn't sound right. We're going to redo that. Not in how we can heal ourselves. Okay. You had mentioned Dr. Bruce Lipton and how, although our family could have genetic problems, we don't necessarily have to have them. In my family, every single woman has had breast cancer, and they've all passed except for my mother and my sister, who are survivors. And I haven't had it. And I'm, as I said, well, I'll tell you all, I'm turning 50 in a month, in August, when this airs. So I'm very grateful. But will you share with us that? Because it absolutely, we don't have to follow the path of that. And I believe that. But I would love to hear more how Dr. Bruce Lipton describes it.
He said that, first of all, to me, again, I have to repeat, this is the best news ever for people that have a family such as yours, where everybody seems to be susceptible to the same ill fate, a fate that is unpleasant, even if they're survivors, to go through all that a cancer patient has to go through or a diabetic patient has to go through. The importance of what he said is that what we think about our potential is what will become our potential. And outside of him, because I just finished writing, my book's coming out the end of July, and I did a lot of research, and there's a Dr. Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas. One of their lead researchers said only 5 to 10% of the people who are diagnosed with cancer have any genetic correlation to their disease. And in fact, millions of people worldwide are being diagnosed with cancer every day. He said, what is up? Cancer is known to be preventable. We don't hear this stuff out there. So cancer is one example, but Dr. Lipton said, just as we can change the expression of our genes, they're just blueprints. So if I hired one architect down the road, another architect with a different idea of design, they would look at the blueprint and they would build two totally different houses. It's up to us to build our temple day to day. Every thought, every habit, everything we put in our mouths, everything we think, all of those things go into the full expression of our lives. And depression and sadness and loneliness are three of the worst things you can do. Even if you don't believe you're going to get a disease, if you aren't connected to people, if you're allowing you to stay in a place of less than vibrant, enjoying life, participating in life, it's almost like a sentence to become diseased. And again, the sadness, the depression, the low energy, the negative thoughts clumping those cells creates genes that want to, the genes that are disease-ridden want to express, because we're feeding them instead of feeding the healthy ones. And food also has a very big genetic unlocking component.
Yes.
So cheese doodles gonna unlock the bad stuff, I'm a chicken wing fan, but I don't have them very often because I know that my body would rather have a nice organic roasted chicken or something on the grill.
Yes. You're
so
so cute.
Everything we do contributes to how our bodies are. That's just, and how can you explain spontaneous remission if not to say that some people get a diagnosis and they go, no way, I'm not checking out, I'm not ready to go, and somehow they get healed. What is that about? There has to be truth in what this guy is saying. And he was a cell biologist for many years. He left a tenured position, and that's really risky for most scientists and doctors. If anybody out there listening knows, he left because nobody would listen to him, but he proved his cell cultures would grow differently depending on his mood. He was only the guy working with them, and he had that effect on them.
That's beautiful. Do you do meditation?
Of course.
Yes, okay. Yeah. I have my clients, when they do my program, they meditate every day because they set their night course for sleep and wellness, and then to wake up the next day. And this is exactly what you're saying is so vitally important, to maintain a healthy mind. Like you said, feed our mind besides our body. Feed it all with the good, beautiful thoughts that'll help us grow and change. My motto is dream, believe, create. If I couldn't have dreamed that, even though I was raised in a metaphysical religion, it was like there was a gene that was missing in my mother. And so as most people know, and this is why I do the work that I do, was incredibly abusive. So if I didn't have that when I woke up on my 45th birthday, that dream, imagine what my life would look like, completely different, how my husband and my relationship would be, what my ideal mate would be like, what I could look like, what my children, not physically, but my relationship with them, my dream, my work, my home, everything. If I couldn't imagine that, I couldn't have believed it in my heart, and I couldn't have the mental capacity to create it. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right about bringing in these beautiful, nurturing, healthy, on a cellular level to change our DNA. And I love that you're talking about this, because this is the most vital aspect of self-love there is. Mm-hmm. And then the other are just, they're not surface stuff, but this is so, so vital. I also want to see if you can, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a few tips we know about not eating cheese doodles. And there is actually on iPhone and other applications called BUYCOTT, Boycott, where you can turn it on and check the scan bar, and it'll tell you whether or not to boycott that item because it has garbage in it. And,
oh, wow.
And everything like that. So, which is very cool. But food-wise, we know that spinach is delicious for our body, and deep greens, and well, maybe some people don't realize that. And that's what I'd like you to share: the deep reds, the deep greens.
One of the easiest principles that I've ever taught was eat by color, and it's not mine only. Many people in health say that, but the first place we have to start is don't feel like you have to do everything and everything has to be organic. And oh my gosh, I didn't eat raspberries from my garden today. Mm-hmm. Think in terms of what can you do in this moment? So we make a commitment for the day. We're going to get our green salads in. We're going to have a healthy breakfast with not a lot of carbs. We're going to have maybe, a nice piece of grilled fish or grilled tofu with some veggies for dinner. Well, what happens if one of those meals goes askew? Mm-hmm. At 7 o'clock, when we may have eaten what we didn't plan on eating, maybe we had a big, rich meal, what can we do between 7 and when we go to bed to be good to our bodies, to love ourselves with some nutrition? You could have a glass of lemon water.
That's what I was going to say.
You have some lemon water, help your liver out a little bit, help your digestion a little bit, alkalize your body a little bit after a heavy meal. Or you could walk. 10 minutes of walking after a heavy meal blocks almost 100% the insulin response. Wow. So you won't get that big blood sugar spike. And we know that the over-insulination of the body is what causes inflammation, which is the root of all diseases, they now know. So always think, what one thing can I do? Eat by color. Make sure you have lean, clean, good proteins. If you can move away from the factory farmed animals, if you're meat eaters and fish eaters, and try to find grass-fed. In the case of fish, farm-raised salmon is pretty nasty, and guess what they're feeding them these days? Corn and soy. And what do we know about corn and soy? They're allergens for many people, and they also put pounds on the animals faster. So we don't need extra in our system unless we want to eat them as a food, a natural food.
And they're also GMO, so
many of them are GMOs.
Yeah, exactly. I was in an organic type health food store the other day looking at the seafood, and there is a lot of information that the Pacific water is now, the radiation has increased due to the earthquake in Japan back, and it's already come to California. So you're not supposed to eat Pacific seafood. So I was asking the man behind the counter about that, and he goes, "Oh, our salmon is farm raised." And I looked at the person next to me, and I'm like, okay. So I'm so glad that you said that, because I didn't know what they were fed. I didn't know they were fed corn and soy. So
not to mention they're also raised in the ocean. So the ocean water is still surrounding them. It's just that they're kept in pens that are poor.
True. You're right. Absolutely. That's brilliant, because here I'm thinking, wow, this is, okay, they're farm raised, they're better, but no. And actually, I've also come to think of it now, my mind is clicking back. I've heard that you're right, farm-raised salmon is worse than wild salmon. So, and this was years back. I heard this. So
yeah, they're also full of food color. There actually is something called a color wheel for salmon, because some markets like pinker, some like orange. But if they didn't color them, they would be gray.
Yes.
Which is not a bad color for fish. It's the natural color.
Exactly.
But because they're not out eating shrimp, which have a natural pigment, they color them so that we feel like they're the same kind of fish.
And also salmon change color as they die. You know, when they go upstream to spawn, that's when they change color as well. They change and they grow teeth, and it's the most amazing thing to watch these creatures, biologically change within a week or two. I mean, to get these vicious teeth and change color, and so it's, nature is, we're amazing, all of us.
Truly,
yeah. It really is. So that's very, very impressive.
Good to keep in mind.
It really is. So back to the food and what is good for us, the farm raised, and I like the idea how you were saying take each step, because sometimes we get in these feelings like our body isn't feeling great, and so if we're not listening to our body what we absolutely need, then sometimes we think we need junk food, like we need a cookie, or we need, when really, a cookie would be maybe a treat once in a while. Mm-hmm. So would you like to talk about listening about the body?
Yeah, that's great lead in. I was interviewed the other day by a doctor named Richard Shamus, who's a thyroid expert. He wrote a couple of books, but one's called Fat, Frazzled, and Fuzzy, or something very funny, but he's just genius at thyroid and actually helped me a couple of years ago. We were talking about this idea of listening to our body. And the problem with most of the way we've eaten and are stressed out is that stress hormones are speaking louder than the natural wisdom of the body. And I said to him, I don't have cravings anymore. And he's like, what? Stop the presses. A woman that doesn't have cravings? And I thought, but that's what happens when you find what your body wants to burn. Mm-hmm. You don't. Now, there are times when I feel like I want to eat something, but it's different than a craving. I'm not running to the fridge to grab the ice cream container. I might say, you know what? I want a bite of ice cream or two. And it's full fat, by the way, ladies and men. Fat is really healthy for you. If it's clean, healthy fat, your body needs that, your brain needs that, your sex hormones need that. So think about that the next egg white omelet you want to have. So if we, you have to judge. I don't like to judge anything, but when you're getting a message from your body that you want to eat junk food, think about the source. The source is not your inner wisdom. The source is a hormonal response because you've been eating it and your blood sugar is going wacky. Yes. And your body your cells are starving. If they get too much sugar at one meal in the form of carbohydrates, or really if you ate a big donut, let's say, then it crashes. They have not really been fed because insulin's trying to get it out of the bloodstream, so it has to store it in a fat cell. Mm. Fat cells are fat and happy. Our energy cells, the cells that run the body, are starving. That's why you're at 4 o'clock sometimes after a heavy lunch. You're like, I would kill for a bagel. Once you make sure you stoke your fire all day long, protein and fat at every meal and every snack, you'll find that you'll have less of those, and then you can really hear the wisdom of the body and hopefully listen to it. A lot of women are like warriors. No, I don't care. I have a pain in my back. Oh, well. Mm-hmm. And then chronically 6 months later, they've been in pain and suffering and not sleeping well. So take care of that blood sugar balance and what you're feeding yourself every day, and you should find it easier to not. And there's nothing wrong with having a cookie once in a while. I mean, right. I totally believe in the 80-20 balance of life. But if you're driven to eat and especially snack late at night, something's out of whack.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Would you like to talk about your book? Because this will already be out when your book is out.
Oh, cool. Well, my book is called Your Genes, Genes, Do Not Determine the Size of Your Genes, Jeans, and it is, the first chapter is all about this freedom that I found when I realized that epigenetics scientifically proves that we're not genetically determined to have one thing or another. And the rest of the book, there are 11 chapters, each one is a myth. So one of the myths is cholesterol is the enemy, statins are the answer. That's totally not true. There are other myths. There's a whole chapter on the hidden culprits that keep people in a place of weight loss resistance. And those are called obesogens, and they're found in the environment, in our foods, in everyday things. It's only a matter of awareness that can help us change. I'm not saying that we can take all of these things out of our lives, but having an awareness, we can make a few changes. There's a whole chapter on sleep, because no matter what we tell people, and you help people get to sleep, I know, it's very hard for people to understand the importance of 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Some people need 9, some people need 7. They're great in between, whatever. So it really just talks about what I believe to be the truths about how everything is food, what we want to be putting in, whether it's mental or physical. I do a lot of mindset work. And the last chapter is, the myth is, you'll never change. People don't change. And so it is then, there's some science of change, how to make successful change, lasting change. And then there are little exercises, coaching exercises, I would say, to see, like you said, how would my life be different if? Mm-hmm. And then, so that's pretty much the whole book. And when I launch the book, I'm also launching a 90-day, what I'm calling a lifestyle tune-up, which will have daily emails and podcasts and all kinds of things to help people do that little step-by-step, one thing at a time over the course of 3 months. They won't recognize themselves at the end if they do it. It's not about weight loss only. It's just about feeling better, having vitality, making good choices, some self-love, that kind of thing.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you ever, just for curiosity, say detoxing is so, the big words and stuff, and I understand the importance for our liver and things like that. Do you recommend detox at all and in a certain way?
Since it's not my expertise, I know when I sense that somebody needs to detox, I will send them to people because it's not my thing, and I don't want to just randomly say go buy a book or do a juice fast. For myself, there are times when I'll just do juices for a couple of days. I don't make a big production out of it.
Right.
I make sure that I get green powder so that I'm getting some plant nutrition. And other than that, I think it's important for some people. I don't think it's good for everybody at every time in life.
Right.
Sometimes people say, oh, well, I have this chronic illness, I should detox. Not without the supervision of a medical professional. I wouldn't do that because the nutritional needs of a person who's sick are higher generally than just a normal person. So if we take all that away and do juices, we've all seen the movies. We know people get better and cured of things. But again, under the supervision of somebody that can monitor the changes going on in the body.
Right. I was reminded years ago, in the early 80s, the Cambridge diet, how people were going on it without, it was like the new fad of the liquid diets, and people were dying right and left. So, don't do anything without getting professional advice. Do your research, use a coach, talk to your doctor. It's very, very important.
It is.
And when you do take care of your body, that inflammation that Greg was telling us just now, it goes away. It's brilliant because we feel so much better, and I love that. And we're almost out of time.
Okay.
I can't believe that.
I know. How did that go by so fast?
It goes by very fast. And you're offering the viewers a free gift, and that will be in the credits. All the information to contact Gregory Anne Cox or Mia Saenz will be in our credits. And you said you wanted to give a link, or should that just be in the credits as well?
You can put it, it'll be at my website, which is wealthywellnesscoach.com/Mia. And there's going to be a gift for the viewers and listeners about a little bit about what we talked about, more in depth about what I believe are the practical everyday self-love tips from a feeding the temple point of view and nurturing the temple point of view.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. This is beautiful, very, very informative, and so much more of a power punch than I thought, because look at me, I'm just radiant here. I love this.
You are radiant.
Thank you. And the total self-love of our body is feeding our mind and our temple and taking care of it. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Gregory Anne Cox, for joining me this week on this segment.
Thank you, Mia. I've so really had a great time, and I appreciate being a part of this series.
Me too. And we'll see you all in the next segment, and look at the credits, how to reach us. Thank you all. Goodbye.